Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to amazing people doing incredible things that lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is an odd duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Today, our guest is Ken Braget. Now, he was adopted at the age of 2, and not meeting his father until 34 years later. Ken has an amazing story about turning a negative into a positive. He says that his ADHD is both a blessing and a curse. I see it as a blessing, and I'm hoping you will too, as his unique thinking ability has not only created a very successful business, but has helped the indigenous community on so many levels. Creating the Don't Scrap, Give Back and the True North Strong Foundation and helping the community of Fort McMurray is what Ken is doing to better the pond. Let me introduce to you Ken Braget. So, Ken Braget, I am really excited to have you on my Better the Pond podcast, and I truly appreciate your time to be here today. And as I said earlier, I'm really looking forward to hearing your stories and finding out what you're doing to better the pond. So, thank you for your time, Ken.
Thanks, Warren. I'm excited to, speaking with you, and I'm even more excited to see which funky shirt you were going to wear today. So you made a good pick.
Well, I'm glad you approve.
Yeah.
So Ken, I want to know what got you from being a gosling to leaving the nest to where you are today. So, Ken, what is your backstory?
Oh my Lord. So, I don't know if you know about me, but I was actually adopted at the age of 2.
Okay. So let's take this back a little bit. So where are you from originally?
So originally I'm from Edmonton, born and raised in Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah, my real father and my mom, who's still involved in my life today, they got together and got married and had me 1982, 38 years old now. And before my second birthday, they had split up, and my mom forced an adoption upon my real father. So my real last name is actually Callahoo. So I was born Kenneth Lewis Callahoo. And so my dad agreed, Farron Callahoo agreed, and my mom took me and left, and then met Dennis Braget. And yeah, my name was changed, and I lived my life until I was 10 years old, when I was told, hey, by the way, you were adopted and your real name is not Braget, it's Callahoo. And then another divorce in my life happened, and I got a new dad. So, I've had the blessings of having three men in my life. And my mom's still around. So, I've had quite the history.
So were you so was that all still in Edmonton through that whole entire time?
Yeah, Edmonton and surrounding areas. But yeah, it's I've been basically Edmonton my entire life. That explains my up and down relationship with my hockey team here, which can't ever seem to get it on track, but one day they will.
There's always, I'm a Leafs fan. There's always hope, my friend.
Oh my God, I feel so bad for you.
So here you are at 10 years old, and you're being told that you're adopted, and that is not your last name is not your real true last name. Do you remember, that moment in time when you were told that, and what was your reaction? And what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, so what is that? That's almost 28 years ago. I remember it very, I'll never forget it as long as I live.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the basement of my house in Millwoods. I was sitting on the floor. My dad was on the couch. My mom was on the floor. And yeah, they just said, this is the story. And there's another dad out there that you've never met. And that was what I was told at the time, was I never met him. And your name was this. And, my adopted father, Braget, was very supportive and said, if you want to look him up one day, I'll help you. I think you deserve to know. Mm-hmm. My mom, not so much. But yeah, I'll never forget it. But at 10 years old, you kind of thought, oh, this is kind of cool. You didn't know how serious it was or how, how different it was, but just, oh, that's neat, right? And that's literally how I remember taking it. And then, I did the most action I took at that point in time to find my real family was, we used to have the white pages. And so I
Remember
actually
back in the day?
yeah, I went through the white pages and I found, there was like 3 or 4 F Callahoo's, and I actually called one, and I'll never forget this. I had 2 friends there with me. I spoke to a young gal, and she said, yeah, hold on. And then I hung up. Like, I actually asked, like, is Farron there? And, who's this? I'm like, this is Kenny or whatever. And she's like, hold on. And I hung up. Right. So that was it.
That was it. You never did you never phone back?
Nope. I got curious again when I was about 18 years old. My mother said, you've never met him. Don't you dare go, don't open that box up. He was abusive, and I guess there was, some stuff that had happened when they were young.
Mm-hmm.
So 18, I tried to look him up. So now my third stepdad, Greg Pellick is his name. And so I was working for him. He owns a valve manufacturing facility here in Edmonton. So I spent some time working with him at his facility, and I found a box in a storage room that had a whole bunch of Farron Callahoo like pay stubs, and it was my mom's box that was being stored at this work, and it had like pay stubs. It had some other documents. So at 18, I look at a pay stub for like Acme Scrap Metals, and I call the business, and I said, hey, is Farron Cowell who worked there? And the owner like started swearing at me, and I'm like, oh God, like, so I hung up the phone. So yeah, that was my attempt at 18 years old, and I did not look again until like maybe 34.
So
Yeah.
in all that time, Ken, I mean, going from 10 to 18, right? And going on again, was it always in the back of your mind? Like, was it something that ever nagged you, or did you just sort of manage to sort of push it out and just get back on with your life? And
Yeah, I never really thought about it much. I would tell people that was my, I would tell people that I was, that my real name was this and that, and it was, but I never ever like, oh, I'm on a mission now to find, right, my real family, right? Never once.
huh? So it never nagged at you, or you weren't on this mad search to make this discovery.
No, you know what? When I was in the police, because I joined the police when I was 26, I think a couple times I tried to, I hope, well, how 12 years, yeah, statute limitation. So, I did once in a while use a police database to try to find my family, right? But they were never in trouble with the law, so it was kind of nice. Didn't find them, but
Well, that's good. Did
mm,
were you the only child with your mom and your original paternal dad?
yes, yeah. So Farron Callahoo and Jerry, my mom, had me. They split up. My Braget dad had my sister, and then actually, sorry, before Farron and Jerry got together, there was my older brother. So I've got 2 other siblings that are just half blood
Oh,
siblings.
okay.
Yeah, but I consider them full, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
do you still connect with them on a regular basis?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
you're
yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Me and my sister's 2 boys are like the same age as my 2 girls.
Ah,
So they go to school together. They play hockey together. And then my brother and me are very close. Yeah, I talk to him probably every day.
oh, okay.
They all live we all live within 10 minutes of each other.
Oh, so you're all still all up in Edmonton.
Yeah.
You guys don't travel much, do you?
No. No.
So so I want to come back to this. And so going back to, you were obviously you're working for your was it your father's valve company,
My
your
stepdad, yeah.
stepfather, sorry, your stepfather's valve
Yeah.
company. And you were how old then?
Probably 18.
18. And how long did you
Yeah.
work there for?
Oh, geez, 3 or 4 years.
And what did you do there?
But everything, like, I would, so I was full time 18 to 23 or whatever it was. But, every weekend, every time I got suspended on purpose at school, I would be shipped to the shop to work. I loved the shop environment. And maybe it was the fact that my dad loved, cheap labor, but he would always bring me to the shop, and I was always around the shop. Um, I liked the environment, and I really liked, what he did and the valves, and it was interesting to me.
And what did you like? What did you do? Everything? Did you go and fix things and tinker and like what did you do?
Um, Mainly I caused a lot of problems. I'll never. I think honestly, I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I said to the one guy, I said, "Hey, my dad's gonna fire you today." And the guy's like, "Oh my god!" And he got all panicked, and like it was totally not true, but that was the kind of little disturber that I was, right? And but you know what, because I was, you know, I look back at our education system,
Hmm.
man. I really wish we could figure it out when it comes to kids that have functions like I did. You know, I remember that, like, my Braget dad. God, I got three dads. It gets so confusing. I'll never forget that my Braget dad had a wife whose brother said, like, your kid's going to end up in jail one day. Like,
Hmm.
there's no doubt about it. And there's some irony behind this whole statement here, because I was functioning, like, I was functioning at a level that people just couldn't understand.
Hmm.
Sit there and do that. Well, I can't do that. So then I go do something. You got to find something to stimulate my brain. I don't know why nobody thought, hey, let's develop a gambling system for 13-year-olds, because this is what stimulates them. It's illegal, but no, it'd be nice if somebody could actually sit there and figure out what the mold is for ADHD kids.
Hmm.
Um, because I was eventually able to figure it out, whether it was from the police, whether it was from being a leader in my business, or just being, having stuff, right? Because actually, so the guy that said to my dad, "Your kid's going to end up in the jail one day,"
Yeah.
it just so happens that when I was in the police, I actually put one of his kids in jail.
There's an irony
I'll
right
never.
there.
Isn't that ironic? Eh? Like, and I'm not laughing about having to put somebody in jail like that. They had some drug issues, but like that was the ultimate, like, kind of that moment, like, oh yeah, okay, right.
So, so tell me, because I met you back in August in Edmonton through Tech Canada, and through the work that I do. When I saw that, I was really excited to actually meet you, because I thought, here's a guy who's just going to think completely out of the box, and he's just a go-getter. And so I was really really looking forward to meeting you, and I think we hit it off, but. I want to know, like, go back to school, because I'll share a story with you, because I think this is something that we have in common. But I want to be able to have you tell the story. What was it like for you in school? Because you made mention of when I got suspended. So obviously you're the kid that got into trouble, right? But how was it, honestly, for you to sit in class and have to go through the motions on a day-to-day basis of whether they've been, history or English, or like the typical classes that we had to go through? What was it like for you to have to experience that day to day?
I hated it. I hated it, and I looked forward to every time we had phys ed.
Hmm.
I went to school to be tortured until I got to go run around in phys ed. Um, I was held back twice. Once grade 8 and grade 2, I think it was. But yeah, I hated it. I hated. There was actually at the time I don't know if they have them now, like those rooms. They would actually put you in a room like by yourself. Well, they actually in my one grade, they put like a cubicle walls up at the back of the room, and then I would sit there. And I'd have to sit there and listen to the instruction, but I couldn't see anybody because that would distract me and whatever else. Yeah.
And so how did that feel for you to be basically isolated? You know,
Oh,
you're,
I hated it.
yeah.
That's the worst thing I've done. Like, but that's the problem with our. I don't know what our education system is like now. I know my kids go to school, but thank God they're the opposite of what I was.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was so flawed. It was so wrong and flawed that, you know, exactly. I was a dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a disorder, right?
Yep.
And it's too bad that we couldn't have figured it out. If they would have done, if I would have had education outside and in some form of creative, activity involved in me learning, I'd be working for NASA because I'd be a genius.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, right? And so the story I was going to tell you, because we share this, is, and I tell this story, that when I was in grade 12, when I went to school in Saskatoon, and as we talked earlier, I actually graduated with your cousin, small world. But we had motor mech, we had welding, we had machining, we had construction, we had electrical, we had all those programs, and I used to skip English or history or algebra so that I could go, and I would actually go and work on my car in the motor mech shop. So I never left the
Mm-hmm.
school, right? I would skip a class to go get out of there to go do something that I actually loved, that I really wanted to do. So, I mean, you can't tell me I wasn't going to get caught. Right. I mean, but it was something that I needed to do because I just couldn't stand there and sit there and actually like listen to, the history teacher. I'm getting nothing out of this. I want to do something that's going to fulfill me. And so when I grew up, my uncle had a trucking company, and I used to ride my bike across town, single speed bike. I'd like to map it out one day how many miles it was, because it was totally across town in Saskatoon. And I would go and work at the shop, and I would change light bulbs or back. I learned to drive a semi when I was 10, and, backing in trailers and doing all those things to fulfill that need that I had. That was my well-being, because I needed that
Yeah.
to be, in my mind, to be successful. So I'm sure you can probably sort of share that same sentiment.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, if I really think I was a subject of my school system saying, get this kid the heck out of here. Give him a 51, get him out of here.
Yeah.
With with two exceptions, right? But yeah, not a lot of people, geez, thinking back now, not a lot of people like actually believed in me, and had a lot of if you would have taken, I don't know how many years. So I went to school for 14 years, and I don't have a doctorate, nothing. But probably every year, with the exception of maybe a couple, probably everyone would have said that this guy's destined to be a nobody, right?
Yeah. Well, you're going to
And
go to jail, right? So what did it feel like to you back in grade 2 and back in grade 8? So not only once, but twice, to be held back. Like what message did you get from that?
other than being the tallest kid in my class, um, I just, God, I don't remember grade 2, grade 8. Grade 8 was, at least my parents did the right thing and they moved me to a different school for my
Mhm.
second time around, which saved me for some of the embarrassment. Um, just that I was kind of stupid, right? Like, just I didn't get it, right? And
But here's the thing, Ken, and I always want to bring this up, because in the work that I do, the story would have been told that you were. No, I don't mean this with disrespect, but you were stupid. That's what the story would have been told, right? And in my opinion, I don't think it had anything to do with your intelligence. I mean,
No,
obviously, you're a very smart guy. You're running a very successful business. You're very intelligent. So it had nothing to do with your intelligence, but everything to do with what you needed in order to be successful in school. It just didn't match up. What how they the how they taught and how you learned were two ships passing in the night. So it had nothing to do with intelligence, but yet that's the story that would have been told. So it was
yep.
never true to begin with.
No, 100%, exactly. Like, that's, I always look at it now, like with my with the valves in my valving company, this stuff just makes sense to me.
Hmm.
It makes so much sense to me that it's like, it's, I feel like Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting. This stuff just makes sense.
Hmm.
And nobody in my educational life could ever give it to me where it made sense.
Hmm.
That was it. That was
Yeah,
simply it.
absolutely.
Right?
So it had nothing to do with intelligence,
No.
right? So
Yeah.
so jumping ahead, so you got into policing. What
Yeah.
what was the driver behind that?
I think just, I look at my hockey career, I look at the way that I've always reacted. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to save the day, whether it was, you know, uh, a dust up in hockey because somebody did something to one of my players. I was always that kind of guy that everybody went, well, who's going to be responsible for this? And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Like that was the role I always took. So, when I was in grade 10, I wrote, um, I had a comm class and I had to write what I wanted to do with my life. And one was run the family business or be a police officer. So when, 23, 24, when me and the old man at the valve company couldn't see eye to eye on the way business was supposed to be done, my default was police, right?
Mhm.
You get to wear a uniform, you get to drive cars real fast, you get to carry a gun. It was kind of cool, right? And so that was the default. And I was accepted like immediately. I got into class and I loved it. I loved everything about it, and I graduated, I think, top two in my class out of 50. Um, yeah, and I loved the street. I loved helping. I loved policing. I loved it, and I had a lot of fun, and it helped make me the person I am today. Because it's helped me to be more articulate, look at things a little bit more methodical. I never even heard about the word methodical before I went into the police. Now it's one of my favorite words. More definitely more methodical. I've been able to control my emotions and my temper. I did have a temper. I've noticed a lot of people with ADHD who do have tempers,
Mhm.
because I think it's the frustration inside them of not figuring it out
Mhm.
that comes out.
Yep.
Um, and so no, I've been definitely a way different person than I was when I was 25, 24, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So back in the policing days, I mean, you did that for what, 4 years?
almost 5. Yeah.
Almost five. So then, you love police work, you love being out in the streets, you love, so you're out on car, you're out doing calls. What was it that made you leave?
So I ended up in patrol. So normal patrol, walking the beat, right?
Yep.
Um, I kind of got into it, not a conflict, but just some things happened that I was asked to do something by one of my acting sergeants, and I didn't agree with it. It was a prank phone call scenario, and they wanted me. This one sergeant who was acting sergeant, so just temporary, was like, "I want you to pull a search warrant. I want you to pull phone records." I'm like, "It was a prank call, like not a big deal." So I ended up talking to a detective, and the detective was like, "That temporary sergeant doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just trying to maybe prove a point, or I don't know what. Don't worry about it. Give me the file. I'll take it." Well, that ended up being I got reported for that, insubordination or whatever it
Mm.
was, and I got transferred from the beat to the absolute worst place you can ever put an ADHD police officer.
Let me
Answer
guess. Behind a desk.
exactly answering 911 phone calls in an office downtown.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my, this is a recipe for disaster. So I took it as a good soldier. I took the position. 6 months in, I was miserable. My home life was crumbling. Um, I was self-destructing because I couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And my last day in the police was August 20th, 2011, I think. And I went to work, and over the phone, I challenged somebody to come down to headquarters and fight me, because I was like, I need some adrenaline. This guy was called up and swearing and yelling at me and all this stuff. And, so did I handle it totally unprofessional? Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I missed it. And so that was my last day in the police. And I'd probably still be there if I was in a patrol, high adrenaline functioning capacity. I'd definitely still be there. And then that made me kind of like, I had the opportunity to go back into a different role, but that role was going to be another desk position, because it was like, so that made me kind of look at how flawed the policing model is.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't take I was a very good patrol constable. Like, I did awesome stuff. Like, I found buried bodies in the woods off source gang information, like stuff that people go their entire life and never even get a sniff of. I was getting that kind of stuff my third and fourth year, because I just had a way of connecting with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at it, the police model is broken, because you'd never take one of your top salesmen and go, hey, top salesman, go be the secretary now.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that. And so
Right.
then I realized the policing model wasn't for me. Very politically, too much politics. And I thought I'm better than just towing the line,
Mm-hmm.
because I am a free thinker. I'm different. I need to go then be different. And then I went back, and I had an opportunity to get into the valve industry again. So I did.
And so where are you now? So get me up to date.
Oh my God. Well, okay. When I was 34, so we'll go back 4.5, almost 5 years. Geez, I'm almost 39. So I was on holidays with my family and my brother's family and my sister's family. And we started talking like about life and about, our current situations. And my sister-in-law goes, have you ever looked up your Calahoo family? And I said, no, that's been years ago, right? And she says, why don't you, are you curious? I'm like, of course I'm curious. Like, I'd love to know who I am. And everyone wants to know exactly where they came from, or their DNA, or if there's, medical issues, or even just what your history is. Mm-hmm. And so literally within like 2 or 3 clicks on Facebook, I'm looking at my real dad on Facebook. A picture of him, his wife, their daughter, their 2 boys, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is my dad and his family, right? Like this, yikes, right? But in my head, I've been told that I have never met this guy, so I'm not going to be like, hey, Facebook friend request, hey, Papa, like remember me? Because he's never met me, right?
Right.
It's what I've been told.
Yeah.
And so the holiday ends, I go home, and I'm really curious now. Like, I've seen my real father. I'm curious. So if you remember that box when I was 18 years old that I went through,
Yep.
I now was in possession of that box, because my mom had moved away. My stepdad and my mom had divorced. My mom moved away, and my stepdad said, hey, take all this crap of your mom's.
Right.
So I had that box in my garage in my house. So as soon as we got home from our holiday, like at 10 o'clock at night, I go to the garage, I get this box, and I start, and like there's hundreds and hundreds of pieces of paper. And in the box is a restraining order for 1984 between Farron Calahoo and my mom. And I'm like, well, wait a second here. I'm 2 years old at this point. This makes no sense, because I thought this guy just bailed.
Right.
But yet, why is there a restraining order and there was a custody battle in 1984? I'm like, this makes no sense to what I've been told, because I was told I never met the guy. But yet, why is there a custody battle and a restraining order? This makes no sense. Well, it started to make sense that maybe I wasn't told the whole truth about what happened.
Right.
And so instead of like the story of like this guy just left and didn't have anything to do with me, it actually turned into like there was more to this, and he wanted to see me, and he wanted, control and power or parenting rights.
Yeah.
So, but that still doesn't solve the whole, like, okay, well, how do I reach out to this guy now? And in that box was another piece of paper that belonged to Farron Calhoun that listed another lady. And so I looked that lady up. She had died a couple years ago, but she had 2 kids listed on her obituary. And so I reached out to one of them because I reached out to her, to one of the kids, and I said, "Hey, do you know Farron Calhoun?" And this lady came back the next day and said, "Yeah, that's my brother's dad." And I'm like, "What the heck?" So Farron Calhoun was a little busy in his younger life, and he ended up having, like, 6 or 7 kids. So this one that I ended up connecting with was my half brother, right?
Right.
So I I I I got a phone call from my half brother, and he's like, "Kenny?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh my God, man, we've been looking for you for years." I'm like, "Wait, hold on a second here." He's like, "Yeah, like we all know about you. I've seen pictures of you and blah blah blah." And I'm going, "What is going on here? Like, this makes no sense that these people actually know about me." And like, so I hung up with him. My phone lights up because I got aunties calling me now, and they're crying on the phone about they've been looking for me for years, and they've been to the police to try to find me. But you adopt somebody and you change somebody's name in 1984. There's no internet, there's no Facebook, there's no nothing. You can't find them.
Right.
And so yeah, my at that point in my life, I knew that I was blood connected to like 3 or 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly, like the Calhoun family is a massive family. Instantly, like hundreds and hundreds of people now are my blood relatives. So it was really neat. And so yeah, I've since connected with my entire Calhoun family. I've learned about how proud they are to be Métis,
Mm-hmm.
Mohawk, Iroquois. Very deeply connected to a First Nations community that was actually enfranchised in 1958. Michelle outside of Edmonton, very connected. Um, and then I reconnected with my real father, which was really neat. Yeah, and then so connected with my real father. Through that, connected with only my what would be my half sister, who's actually the same girl that I talked to when I was 10 years old when I made that phone call.
Oh, you're kidding.
He told me, she's like, "Did you call our house one day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember that phone call." She was 14. And I'm like, and she's like, "I remember the phone call." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did."
Wow.
So crazy, eh? Yeah.
That is crazy. So did you ever get this sort of cleared up with your mom at some point where because you weren't told the whole truth, or did you just kind of let that go?
You know what? I know the truth. My mom moved away 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she she's battled some stuff. She's battled issues, whether it be addiction and mental health battles. So honestly, I know the truth, and that satisfies me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm not looking to bring it up or to get clarifications. I won't be told the truth anyway. But I'm good with it now.
But I guess, yeah, you can put at the end of the day, you can put your head on the pillow and know you know the truth, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Yeah.
So now, so here you are running True North Valve Solutions, which is a a very large valve company, so that is an amazing backstory, Ken. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a long one, but yeah, it's
That's okay, but I love it. I love the story. So I'm going to move on. So here we go. I believe that we are all odd ducks, that we're all misfits, right? And so tell me about a time, this, you've kind of led into this a little bit, but if there's a specific time where you didn't fit in, but you didn't fit in, but yet you stood out. And what is it, Ken, that really makes you different? And I don't mean this from an egotistical standpoint or a pride standpoint, but what is it that makes you you that's different and unique, and a time that you actually stood out and didn't fit in?
well, I look at basically, working for my dad in his valve company. The fact that I don't know what it is, but I really care about the people that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
I never use the term boss. I never use the term works for me. I never use that term. Sorry. I always look at it like we're a team. Just because I might be the president or the founder, the CEO, whatever title might be. That's only because know, every structure needs that for identity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm not better than anybody else. So I look at when I worked for my dad. My dad, I love the man to death, but we just couldn't see eye to eye on the way things were done, because I feel like, you know, there should be shared prosperity. There should be, I'm the fifth highest paid guy at True North.
Hmm.
When traditionally I should be the highest paid by a long shot if you look at traditional presidents of companies, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, there we could not see eye to eye. I look at my last company that I helped start, that I owned 42% of. You know, the one partner that I had looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I didn't come here to make friends." And I'm like, that's the exact opposite of why I got in business. Because now I got mandatory friends. All these people have to be my friends. And if I treat them good, they'll be better friends. So I look at my philosophy and my way of thinking about running a business and treating people.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me definitely an odd duck. Like, I sacrificed my first 2 years of dividends to build a 2,000 square foot gym for my people. We're spending another 20-30,000 on a full kitchen and a really big, nice, our change room for my guys
Mm-hmm.
has high end country club lockers, like made of wood. Me guys, I feel like every experience that you have with me and with True North should be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And you should just feel good about it, right? Whether it's you're changing your grubby coveralls and you're in a country club setting, or my goal with my big full kitchen that we're spending a lot of money on is that I want to create a job um, that somebody can come in and cook for the guys every day. The guys can pick a menu of healthy food, and I can employ someone to come in and cook lunch for the guys. So they can have that. They can take their break at 10 o'clock and come up, and there's fresh fruit and a smoothie. And,
Wow.
so I think just the way I look at leading a company
Mm-hmm.
especially in our climate and our industry,
Mm-hmm.
is really different. Nobody has what we have.
You just think differently.
I do,
You
but
see things that other people don't see.
well, totally. That's the cursed and the blessed part of my brain, is that I go where nobody's thinking. And
It's a blessing if you ask me.
oh, totally. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. Um, so I think that definitely makes me a really odd duck, is the
Mm-hmm.
fact that, um, I haven't been able to fit in as a partner or as a follower in any business or any organization, the police that I've been involved in, because I don't have limits on my mind,
Right.
and I need to be limitless in order to be successful. Right?
That totally makes you an odd duck. And but because of it, you make the world a better place, Ken. Bottom
Yeah.
line.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
think so.
so tell me about a time in your life, something specific, where someone did something for you that left an impact on your life.
Something did something for me in a positive or a negative way.
Positive or negative.
Um, I look at my old business that I was a part of, and we had a partner that was very toxic. He was a very negative individual. I don't wish anything bad upon him, but that that experience of me kind of being bullied and being allowing myself to be manipulated in a negative way, I'll never ever forget. And because that it almost ruined my life. And but it made me aware of a bunch of things that I need to do better and I need to be aware of. Um, so that like it almost ruined my business, right? And So that impacted me the most because I think about it a lot. And it's like people always say, well, I'm glad that my parent was like that because now I know how to not be a parent or know how to not be a,
Hmm.
well, thank God my ex-partner was like that. So now I know how not to be a leader and a partner for maybe future partners, right?
Right.
That was, it was a very traumatizing experience for me actually. And people, you don't know somebody until you marry them or you go into business with them,
Yeah.
right?
Very true.
And so I look at that.
So,
Um,
so you took that experience, but you leveraged it, right? You leveraged it into something positive.
yep, yep. By basically doing the opposite of what what I think that person would have done.
I had a manager like that once in my life as well, and I tell you, he taught me a lot. Right? He taught me a lot of what not to do, and
Yep,
that was the gift, right?
yep.
We look. It looks negative, but it really truly is a positive. So, what are you doing, Ken, right now to better the pond? And more importantly, is why are you doing it?
Um, you know, with reconnecting with my Callahoo family and learning how proud Mohawk Iroquois and how connected to the Michel First Nations that they are, and basically walking the earth for 34 years not knowing who I was, I have become absolutely obsessed with a part of our society that it feels like is being ignored. There's being definitely more light being shed on it now, but that's our indigenous population. And I feel like we've got a tremendously long road to go to develop skills and to create opportunity and equality for our indigenous people.
Hmm.
And that's become my new passion is, you know, I started True North because I saw a need in our industry for a company like ours.
Hmm.
And now my desire to grow it is because I see a need and a desire in our society for what it can do, which is, be responsible for employing and developing the skills of hundreds of our indigenous population, right? So, you know, I look at different opportunities. I reach out to different First Nations communities looking at employment for their people, skill development opportunities. I look at, I did something big with the Fort Mac Boys and Girls Club. They were devastated by the fire, and they take care of 115 families a day. So, we kicked them a fairly big donation back in September, which was, if you think about it, wow, like, giving back in a time of COVID, well, you know, we've had exceptional growth and we have the opportunity to do that. So I do feel like those who can give back
Hmm.
definitely need to, especially at a time like this.
Absolutely.
Really, there's really no reason why people with $1 billion, um, you know, I'm not against capitalism, 100% I'm not, because I love capitalism.
Yeah.
But I believe now is the time for people to give back to small businesses, um, to be helping out, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and I've talked to actually quite a few people on my podcast as well. Some people whether locally or around the world who are doing that same thing. Some small business owners. There's a small business here that gave up 100% of their profits through COVID and gave it back to the community. It was like $50,000. They're a small company, but that was their need to give back, and through a time when everybody was really, really struggling. So they were. It was absolutely amazing. So, can you tell me what you did up in Fort Mac?
Um, yeah, so I started a program in our industry, called Don't Scrap, Give Back. So it's actually I think it's a pretty concerning issue that when these oil companies do these big projects, they then have all this surplus material sitting around
Hmm.
and they throw it out. They just scrap it. Well, it's perfectly good material that if you actually were to maybe make a couple phone calls and have an avenue for reusing, you would. So, they scrap it for like 5 cents on the dollar and it goes to the scrap bin. Meanwhile, that material is taken off the market. So we look at to then manufacture that product. You're looking at greenhouse gas emissions. You're looking at, there's no way to reduce your carbon footprint. But if you were to keep it in the market, you could reduce all those issues.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, perfect greenhouse gas emission. We can reduce that by maybe salvaging this stuff and reusing it. But a lot of the times these companies just say, come pick this stuff up. I don't want it. Come get it. Well, I'm like, well, I don't feel good about taking this stuff for free, because even though I love capitalism, I don't feel like I've worked for this.
Right.
And so I thought, well, hey, if we can then take this donated material, I can sell it, then take the profits and donate that to an indigenous community or charity that's underfunded. That's cool. Right. So that program got started before in June. And, the floods happened, Fort McMurray. I found out about the Fort Mac Boys and Girls Club. All their furniture wasn't insured. So I'm like, you know what? This would maybe be a great opportunity, because they take care of 115 families.
Mm-hmm.
This is like an after service daycare program, after school stuff. Well, that's shut down now. So then all these parents working up in Fort McMurray, who probably most of them work in the oil sands or for Suncor or Syncrude or somebody up there, are now having to sacrifice their ability to keep the province flowing with what they do, because they don't have after school care or programs. So I thought, perfect. This is a direct tie to what I do. This is a direct tie to the indigenous Wood Buffalo community. Let's do it. So yeah, I drove up there in September and met with Michelle Farrell. She's a fantastic gal doing a lot of good work up there. And I gave them 25 grand to get going again. And they should be up and running. I think like yesterday, they kind of maybe had their grand opening again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was really cool. I've ever since I drove up to Fort McMurray, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, I've loved the community. I love it up there. It gets such a bad rap from Hollywood elites that have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Those people have endured, slander in the media. They had the fire 4 years ago. They had the flood, and they're still there. They're strong, and they're there so that we can all make a living. Like if we didn't have the oil sands and those people didn't want to live in Fort McMurray, we would have nothing. Right. So I'm so thankful that they've stayed and that they've worked and of what they do. So I want to do a lot of stuff up in Fort McMurray. I want to actually expand to Fort McMurray so that I can contribute to the tax base, that I can create jobs up there,
Mm-hmm.
and be a part of the community. So yeah, no, we did that. And then when I was there, I was like, well, the Keano College, so I stopped by the Keano College, and they got 115 Indigenous students there. And so I created 2 scholarships a year for the Indigenous students to apply for to get financial help.
Wow.
So, but it's actually quite funny because when I sat down with the scholarship lady, I said, I don't want this to be an academic scholarship. I want this to be a scholarship where the requirements are somebody like me. Somebody who might be misunderstood, might be a class clown. And you know what? I don't care if those people go to post-secondary or not. They need somebody to believe in them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that goes a long, long way when somebody just believes in you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of like, okay. So yeah, no, that's exactly what I did. So it's 2 scholarships that are literally not academic based. They're for that one soul that just needs a little bit of somebody believing them.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So, doing all the work that you're doing to give back to the Indigenous community and up in Fort Mac, why do you do it, Ken?
If not me, who's going to do it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anybody doing it right now. I'm hoping that with what I'm doing, I can maybe set the trend and shed some light on it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
For far too long, what a lot of companies in my industry have done is just taken their profits and funneled them to Houston to impress their shareholders.
Right.
And there's hundreds, if not a good 1,000 to 1,500 jobs in my industry that can be filled with Indigenous people
Mm-hmm.
to help them develop skills. Right.
Right.
And I've done a ton of reading and I've done a ton of courses. I've taken the Aboriginal awareness stuff very seriously. so I can spread the word and kind of preach on it. Like I don't meditate, I don't pray, but I don't meditate, but what I do is like I smudge. Like at True North, we actually have a smudging area.
Okay.
Where you can kind of go and just, kind of reset and refresh and kind of get some negative stuff off your chest.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like there needs to be more awareness brought to it.
Mm-hmm.
Our First Nations people really believed in a simple life,
Mm-hmm.
in community, in sense of the environment, but they were kind of forced to adopt European capitalistic ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And, so that takes time to evolve. If Europeans were evolving since, let's just say easily the 13 or 1400s, when they came over, Christopher Columbus came over, they've been evolving for that long because they believed that their capitalistic society was the right way to live.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, being forced to live in a mold.
Right.
Right. Well, our First Nations people didn't believe that.
Right.
And you could actually argue which society would be better off today and would be more stress-free and relaxing. I would pick First Nations society all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I believe that if it's, this was forced upon us, you're not going to be able to change it. So what we can do is we can start to develop the skills, because if Europeans had a 600-year head start or a 500-year head start, well, that's okay. It's going to take time for just natural progression and evolution of life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So our federal government's done an absolute terrible job at recognizing this and thinking that throwing money is just the issue,
Mm-hmm.
or going to be the solution to the problem. And it's not. It really
Right.
isn't. It's going to be skill development and job creation.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, because what throwing money at the problem is it's caused a whole bunch of people in our society to probably have a really good point at saying, oh, how much more money are they going to get? Well, that's not what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's not what's going to help. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
by doing what you're doing, right, and creating jobs, creating skill development, and helping on that, going back to some of that really enriching culture, can hopefully start to make some really hopefully lasting change.
Oh, I see it firsthand. I told this story on Don Cooper's podcast, but I had a young man that worked for me. Chad Lewis is his name, and Chad came to me from the Athabasca Cree First Nation, and job interview, literally head down, didn't talk to me, and I'm like, you've come here for a job, and yeah, I want to work. And I'm like, okay, well, you want to work, that's great. So I hired him. On his first day, I looked at him and I said, Chad, what's your mechanical aptitude, you think? And I had to explain aptitude to him, which was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, like, a 1. I've never worked with tools in my life, and he's 18 years old, never worked with tools and whatnot. And I'm okay. That's okay. I had a discussion with my staff on how we're going to handle Chad, and you need to just understand that here's where he's at. So a year later, I went to Chad, and I'm like, Chad, like, what's going on, buddy? How you doing? He's like, oh, I'm great, blah, blah. And looked me in the eyes, and I said, Chad, what's your mechanical aptitude now a year later? And he's like, Ken, I think it's a 7. And I'm like, Chad, I totally agree with you. He came so far in a year. And I said to him, I said, Chad, do you think you'd be at a 7 if all I did was bring you in, put you in an office, and give you a paycheck every 2 weeks, and you did nothing? And he goes, no, I'd still be at a 1. I'm like, exactly. There's my point proven exactly. Right.
Yeah. And somebody to believe in him, and somebody to give him an opportunity to shine. So, what happened to his self-confidence, his self-esteem, his own self-worth, would have changed absolutely dramatically. And,
Yep.
and hopefully, down the road, right, he'll do that for someone else.
Well, and that's exactly what what I got a lot of joy in, and why I'm doing it is because I look at Chad. Chad's going to teach Chad as a kid one day, boy or girl, how to do something, and it'll just go down the line, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It'll go down. It'll go, yeah. So that's what excites me, is
Mm-hmm.
that potentially ending this stigma around our First Nations and our indigenous people, that we can just help end together, right? Because
So
nobody thinks the way I just explained it, that the European culture has been evolving. Like, they built ships to cross the Atlantic Ocean, right?
mhm.
And they had this capitalistic ideas and these this in the industry and the infrastructure. Well, that's what they wanted. Great. Meanwhile, these other people across the pond didn't think like that, and that's fine,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly, and then but yet it was forced upon them. So I just love the fact that when you're saying about what you did for that young man. I mean, you're doing what I'm trying to do is you're creating the ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you drop the pebble in and then you're letting the ripples go, and it just keeps on going, right? And good on you for doing that. So here's our last question, Ken. You are the wise sage. You have the crystal ball. You are the wise goose on the pond. Um, so looking into the future, can you paint me a picture of what is your golden pond? What does the future look like
For just me?
for you, for what you want to accomplish, for your company, for
Okay, well,
it's endless.
that's easy. When I started True North Valve Solutions, I immediately started a foundation called True North Strong, and that foundation is geared towards assisting our indigenous communities, mental health and addiction programs, skill development. So to me, I want to build up True North to that. You know, I can spend a lot of time with that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
That True North Valve can fund that foundation, and we can have full-time counselors on staff. We can go into communities. I'm hearing about Churchill, Manitoba, where there's a mental health risk emergency right now, and I'm trying to get out there and get involved to have my counselor deploy to some communities that do have that. So I'd like to have those capabilities, and eventually maybe one day have like a True North recovery or treatment ranch,
Mm-hmm.
where we can bring higher risk patients who need some attention, high level attention, and get them that help they need, right? So that's my goals, and that's what I want to do with the next kind of like 2 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal. Do you happen to know of a gentleman by the name of Kendall Netmaker? Has that name crossed your path at all?
No.
Okay, it's from So he was a tech member as well, and he's from Sweetgrass First Nations. First Nations. So he's got a great story about a kid who grew up in the res, right? To now he's a speaker and he's an entrepreneur and doing all these wonderful things. So just a bit of your story, where you want to go, kind of reminds me a bit of him, and I might have to connect you guys because he's a really remarkable guy. And
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
you're about the same age, actually. So
Yeah. You know what? I love meeting people that kind of the same passions I do, because I
yeah.
think only together until a bunch of private businesses and people take this issue seriously,
Mm-hmm.
is it going to get fixed, because the government's done a horrible job at it.
Yeah. So I will make that connection for you, because I think that'd be great. And if there's anything that I can do to help, I have another friend of mine who's actually starting a recovery and addiction center here, close just outside of Regina, and so I might be helping him out with that as well, because just helping people who need help, right, and just being
Yeah.
there for them. So I totally get where you're coming from. So if there's anything that I can do to help, we can continue that conversation. So. But Ken, I really want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for your stories. I think you got an amazing story. I love it. But where can people go to find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Our website, truenorthmods.ca or .com. Yeah, you know what? I'm not that active on social media anymore, because honestly, it's very depressing lately. And I've
We're
had this.
telling a good story here, Ken.
Yeah, no, I know. But like Twitter is so depressing with United States politics and what's going on in Canada, and literally it's LinkedIn and our website is where you can kind of keep in touch with us. And yeah.
Okay. You on Instagram?
I am, but you know what? Not very active
Not
once
active.
again.
Okay. And what about
Yeah.
Facebook?
No, I got rid of Facebook months ago after it became so I watched that Social Dilemma on Netflix, and everybody needs to watch it. It's it's too addictive, and honestly, it's 50-50 of like depressing stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And that was the reason I started this whole thing, Ken, was, let's tell some good stories. Let's tell some positive stories. Let's get good messaging out there, because the fact is that we're getting bombarded with a lot of negativity.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So, it's almost like people should, instead of going on Facebook or going on social media, pick up the phone and call one of your friends. Like, get the real scoop,
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Whatever happened to just actually phoning somebody?
It's weird.
Isn't it weird?
It's almost like you're mad now. It's like, oh, just text me.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, all right. So there you have it, folks. We had a great time here with Ken Braget. Again, I truly appreciate your time. I loved your story. If there's anything that myself or our listeners can do, reach out to Ken to be able to help in the cause. And I think that you're doing amazing work. I fully support it, and I applaud you for doing the things that you are, and I applaud you for who you are as a person, because you think outside the box, you think differently, and there's your gift, and that's what you give back to the world, because you are making a difference.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So this is Warren Barry flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thanks very much, Ken.
Thanks, Warren.